of the world.
Well,
Tamas,
good to see you again, Chris.
how's it been since last year?
I'm good. I'm good. Just doing what I need to do, secure the world every day, every minute.
Every day, every minute, every day, every minute?
I mean, more or less.
I mean, no free time, no...
I have some free time,
You know,
of
you
course,
have
but,
a family, you have a
I
home.
I have passion on what I'm doing. So.
It's nice to see it. What do you think this year? Any better than last year?
I just want to say it's great to be here again. I mean, I've been to here in the previous conferences, and you guys are doing an amazing job here. Well organized from the content perspective, great socialization here. So I really want to thank to organize and putting all this together. It's really unique, and it's my pleasure to be here.
In the world of security, it's the place to be.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
The stage, sir, is yours.
Thank you very much. And yeah, dobar dan. Good day to all of you. Thanks for having me here. It's already a tendency that I'm always one of the last speaker. I was told by Matis all the times that this is such a privilege to be here as the last speaker, because just before the charity auction, when all the people expected to be here. So what I'm going to talk about today, is certainly something to how to enable secure cloud transformation for everyone who is taking this journey. So let me elaborate what I'm going to talk about in the next 30 minutes or so. If you look at this transformation, it is certainly a journey. Everyone is taking this journey, but we all understand that this journey is different for everyone. You might guys standing in a different phase with this. But there are two main business drivers behind this when we talk about this secure and transformation to the cloud. The one part is certainly coming from the infrastructure part. The reason behind this, that enterprise is leveraging more and more on public cloud providers. Think about here, Azure, AWS, Google, and several others. This is great. But there's another driver behind this. This is on the right side, coming from the business perspective, that more and more customers and enterprises relying on cloud-native applications. Office 365, Box, Salesforce, and a lot of others. So it doesn't matter really where are you with this. We are here to help in this transformation to make it as secure as possible. But let's look at this journey a little bit from a detailed perspective. It started long ago with the physical servers, then went to the private cloud environment, which is, in my understanding, pretty much equal with virtualization. But the reason that the public cloud providers came into the pictures and accelerated this is because the performance, the agility, and the overall availability, accessibility, and that is moving very fast. Think about here, Dockerization, containerization technologies, or even the latest and greatest called serverless. By the way, one of the beauty of the serverless technologies that you're literally taking care for one single piece of code, and the rest, in terms of the provisioning, the required amount of resource, that's all done by the providers. And another beauty of that you don't need to store huge amount of data on different storages, and you actually paying only after the consumption of certain applications. Again, whenever you are in this journey, we are here to help to secure not only McAfee, but everyone here who talked about the cloud so far. It's a joint community, it's a joint game, and we are helped with this. Obviously, this journey is generating and creating different challenges. Let's talk about first about this type of challenges. One of the things here is the complexity, certainly the shared responsibility model. I'm not sure how much you guys are familiar with the shared responsibility model. I will come back to that. This is something like who is responsible of the cloud and who is responsible for what in the cloud. The second thing is the complexity when it comes to visibility and control. These are the two key things. I will come back to that and explain. But if you don't have a visibility, then it's difficult to do any other things like detection, protection, or even correction. Shadow IT challenges, efficient or inefficient management. You have to have a single pane of glass when it comes to your hybrid environment, how you're able to manage all this hybrid infrastructure on one single console. So an efficient management is really crucial and important here. I want to take it to the next level and reference here for one of the statements from Gartner. And Gartner is saying that out of those different models, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, actually the fastest or or the most growing part here is certainly the infrastructure as a service. You can see how rapidly actually it's growing. Software as a service as well, but infrastructure as a service is leading the race at the moment. And this is the reference share responsibility model. Obviously, there are different levels of the responsibility for different platforms. What I want to say here is, as I mentioned, responsibilities in the cloud or off the cloud. And as you can see, if it comes to infrastructure as a service, the responsibility basically is much greater than compared with any other platforms. There will be a lot provided from your public cloud providers, but a lot of other things will be your responsibility. And this is the explicit reason of what Gartner is saying. Gartner came up another statement last year. They said until 2020, which is just about a year from now or even less, actually 99% of the mistakes and failures in the cloud will be a failure because of the customers. So it's not like 50% or two-thirds. They said 99%, almost everything. So we have to watch out this. We have to deal with it. And now let's talk about, the infrastructure as a service security layers. And these are where I would like to bring you a couple of use cases in my presentation. What, how, and why McAfee can help you with this. Let's start with the detect correct security misconfigurations. That's one of the parts. Another one is detect and correct workloads and Dockers and how to secure them. The third one, as I already mentioned, is one of the drivers here, how to protect data in different applications. So basically, the first part of my presentation, I would like to focus on this insecure misconfigurations and how to protect data in the app. And the second part, how to bring complete visibility and control over the workloads and Dockers when it comes to infrastructure as a service environment. Okay, so these are the 5 use cases I want to walk through from that perspective. And maybe we can start with the misconfiguration part. The misconfiguration part is something where I have a great example here. Let's put this example, security configuration audit. So think about here a situation when actually, you're even not aware of, you don't know, how many volumes have in the cloud, how many stores are in the cloud, and how you secure them or how you encrypt them. And there's one of the guidelines also verified and confirmed by AWS saying, if you have data in the cloud, it's kind of a data in rest concept, then you really need to secure it. Security means here, one of the layers is here, the encryption. So you would leave basically data in rest without encryption. And that's something what we can very granularly control in our solution set. It's continuously basically monitoring those security settings in an infrastructure as a service environment. And we'll bring up these benchmarks as a default out-of-the-box template to use and run against such policy. And you can see with this policy, the result is immediately visible actually on the console. You can mitigate this. So certainly, as soon as this is something as a security issue which you need to deal with, then we can easily assign it to basically as an incident response to someone in your organization. We can pick up the right response, handle as a new incident, and make sure that we close this. So as soon as the IT team actually deal with it, as soon as they secure this, forcing the right encryption on those volumes or storages for the data in rest, then basically the system can automatically verify these benchmarks running again and close that incident as a resolved one. This is one example for the one. Let's see the rogue IaaS accounts. That's another significant issue. So sometimes we have accounts there for using, a couple of risky applications, a couple of risky data, and so on. So one of them could be here like, unsanctioned or uncontrolled, applications, or actually services. Like think about here Alibaba Cloud, which might not be allowed at the company, but there are some users under the shadow IT responsibilities or shadow IT challenges where they're actually taking this and, that's something we can also granularly control it and saying that, hey, this is something what we considered as a sanctioned application or sanctioned platform to use. So we can basically go to the system and take this control and risky point and eliminate into the system. We can take, again, an appropriate action, applying with a bunch of automation here to make sure that we close this. Huge part here is the data in applications. So another part here is how we protect confidential data with confidence. And think about here in this use case, we also have a couple of sensitive files in an S3 buckets, in one of the stores in Azure. And we want to make sure that, because of those data contain like PII data, or personal informations, we have some basic or comprehensive DLP rules against known, credit card details or confidential informations around the PII data. And then we can easily enroll a rule saying that, hey, whenever I try to pass such information, let's say relying and using Office 365 or copying those files with those sensitive credit card details, for instance, to OneDrive, then actually we can take appropriate action immediately and we can, block this very effectively, saying that, hey, this is something which is, again, should be restricted or we need to deal with it. And an on-demand can be initiated to identify all these rogue users. So there's another vector where basically we need to pay attention when it comes to the data and application part. So it's also a risky thing to identify all these threats and everything what is might behind these users and the content what these users basically using. So we can also here, using this threat funnel correlations, some anomalies, detections, analyze those false positives and negatives, and taking up some inside the threat reports and seeing where we need to focus on with that. We can also go further with that and saying some automations based on the activities. We can track really down those kind of activities in great details. We can visualize those details from the system. What are the users actually doing and who's doing any rogue activities. It's not only that, but if we go further with a forensic investigation and real-time monitoring, instead of bunch of different policies, we can easily categorize actions like who did and what around to upload, download the file, who's accessed, who deleted the data, what kind of anomalies appearing here, and we can get this really real-time, really intuitive onto the console. It also goes a bit further because we can also use here a GTI-based comparison using a geolocation map. You see where exactly this is appearing in your organization. If you're talking about big data centers around the globe, around the country, or EMEA-wide, that might be very useful information to see this. And not only from that perspective, but if you look at the threats, that sometimes that there are incidents on unusual or suspicious traffic, which we really need to identify. So think about here some malicious IPs coming from, which needs to be blacklisted because they related to some Tor sites. So I don't want to go further with that. We all know the story, Then once we get the file there, the exfiltration will start with the delayed execution, then the problem will be huge. And the data will not be different, the threat will be different from this perspective, that whether or not they're in the cloud or prem, or where are they exactly. So basically, these are the 5 use cases what the solution can bring up, called mVision Cloud, from the application and data perspective and checking insecure and missed configurations. But certainly there is another part, what we call the infrastructure side, where it comes to the detect secure workloads and containers. And let me also talk about this for you while we are walking through a couple of use cases. This slide will explain you this. This is how we, with mVision Cloud at McAfee, own the threat defense lifecycle. Obviously, everything starts with the visibility and detection. It's fair to say, if there is no visibility, we cannot really detect, protect, or correct something. When it comes to hybrid cloud environments, and please also consider here private clouds, so OpenStack, KVM, NSX, Citrix, Hyper-V, or the mentioned public cloud providers. Think about here unknown, unmanaged workloads, uncompliant systems, unencrypted volume devices, like in my example in the previous use case. Unknown, unmanaged Dockers, containers, they are all challenging how to get the visibility. There are many organizations who's moving workloads very quickly in the cloud environment due to the reasons I mentioned before. And when I'm saying workloads, think about here computers, computer resources, of course. We need to have the visibility in order to contourize them. So the second step is basically here when we are adopting a kind of correction against those anomalies. Think about here endpoint level protection, network level protection, database level protection with the desired outcome. The third step is definitely here to defend against those attacks. And that's where the solution set come into the picture. So here, for instance, the deployment of our endpoint protection with or without our ATP modules. Think about here solutions like using and relying on native encryption enforcement from the public cloud providers, understanding and changing the network security groups where those workloads located, analyze and visualize the network traffic, bringing a proper network level threat management into it. Or think about here solutions like application and change control, which is create an active dynamic whitelisting to prevent against any unauthorized access to the different systems like servers, critical infrastructures. Or think about here vulnerability assessment based on some benchmarks-based comparison, which is also highly recommended as a best practice from containerization vendors like Dockers. And I told you how popular are the Dockers. So that is all important, and that's where our comprehensive solution set come into the picture, and that's where we are ready and able to deploy all these layered defense security solutions to the workloads, even if they are in the cloud. And by the way, this is really something, third reference to Gartner, where they really confirm that these are the triangle and these are the layers which needs to be achieved around the workload protection platform report, what they announced also a year and a half ago. So now let's talk about another 5 use cases in this area, how we can get a full visibility and control and remediation over those workloads moving fast into your hybrid cloud and data center environment. So let's start first with the visibility question as one of the key. The way how we can able to achieve this slide will show you better. This is EPO, ePolicy Orchestrator, might some of you already know this, is our central management console, being a single pane of glass here. Even an on-prem EPO has an API level integration and connector to the desired private or public cloud provider. And what we are doing through this API integration, we are basically reading and capturing the net flows and VPC logs and such informations to actually make those workloads available and visible in real time. So what you are basically seeing here is that the number of the workloads we count, live status details coming directly from the live traffic from those providers, as well as this live details information on the security, which is obviously will show you what I mentioned in the threat defense lifecycle, unmanaged, uncompliant devices without any security. And that's something what is not only not good, but we want to make sure that as soon as the new workload appear in your public or private cloud environment, you will be able to deploy the right set of the solutions. So this is on the right side, and these are the technologies I just finished a few minutes ago, what we are able to deploy immediately together with the McAfee agent for the workloads. So the visualization part, where we are heavily relying on the native workflow and VPC log information from the public cloud providers, coming without even deploying an agent. For the visualization, we also don't need to have the agent. But as soon as we want to take the control, so visibility and control, the two pillars again, then we need to pick up the right set of the products which needs to be deployed. This is like, what is mandatory, what is nice to have, what is needed. It's very granular according to your policy and according to your actual threat landscape. So, and then we were able to basically deploy it. But there are also options for some immediate action. So how about if there's a workload popping up in the public cloud environment? There are some viruses already we started to exfiltrate it. There is a significant virus outbreak behind that. And you can think about it in a way that obviously every company's management is really want to know that what was the threat vector, which services, users, ports, content being compromised. Show me the threat vector. Show me, the root cause. But in the same time, they need to close the gap. They need to take some immediate remediation action. So with this solution, we can basically go up, deploy a McAfee agent, and then there are some additional actions like quarantine the workload, shut down the workload, or putting a tag on the workload which information can be driven back to the console or to a SIEM system to take appropriate incident response. So we can certainly stop that type of exfiltrations, even if they are occurring in the cloud. Now let's talk about the difficult detecting breaches and how we analyze the network flow and the threat prevention. This is basically how we visualizing the traffic. It's another beauty of that we can really bring this type of visualization out of the box. What we are doing here is basically doing a GTI-based comparison. GTI is the acronym for Global Threat Intelligence, our reputation-based, hash-based threat library, what we are heavily relying on. We can compare the actual network security group settings and adjust them, to change them, modify them, and relying on another layer of the solution called VNSP, Virtual Network Security Platform, we can do a really proper network-level threat management. So that's where we can really act and detect and protect, not just visualizing the traffic. Another importance behind this, because in the same console actually, which is pretty real-time and actionable, I can also see, informations like east, west, north, south traffic. I'm not sure everyone is familiar with this, but the east-west traffic is something, how the sun is rise, goes up and down. Basically, there shows the activities around the globe between different data centers. Think about here attacks like lateral movements, which is very sophisticated and very difficult sometimes even to see or discover. And it's stealing a lot of data moving around the data centers, how the packets actually copied between the data centers. Or think about the east-west side, when actually for those who's accessing the data centers from outside, are we able to monitoring and controlling that? It's again all about the visibility and the control. The answer is yes. So we can easily visualize this information here. And if we need, not just take the same immediate actions like shut down the workload, quarantine the workload, or put a tag on it for incident response, but we can also show the security group and change this. So if there is any malicious connections, any high-risk port association, whatever, we can dig into that using the native settings of the network security groups from the providers and then change it. Or we can go for our solution, deploy an additional level of the firewall settings. Malware and viruses. That's another example, and this is actually which I'm already briefly talked and mentioned here. And this is basically how we integrate into this framework using these immediate actions, again, which we can take upon a virus outbreak or an exfiltration of the code, an execution of the code. This is basically very comprehensive, and it also helps those kind of complexities and challenges which I already mentioned at the beginning and many organizations facing with. And it's not going to be better. So the environment's going to be very complex. Many organizations is short on skilled resources, so we all need to use also some automation and orchestration in that. It's also very important. So in the last example, I'm going to go back to this efficient management, which is highly important. How is this fit into this puzzle? How is this fit into the picture with EPO? Which is an open architecture and open framework for that. And this is basically, again, those actions which I can immediately take from the console, which is, again, the quarantine, the shutdown process, or tag the workload for further response or investigation. I already mentioned this Gartner VCPP report. So this is actually reflecting. If you look at the solutions, these are the layers and the different security products we are offering as a part of the solution set. So whenever you need basically a threat prevention, normal threat prevention, or together with APT modules like containment, real-time monitoring, and so on, then it all comes with this. Intrusion prevention part, firewall part that's also embedded into the solution. Application change control, which I already mentioned, is also part of that. And a couple of other options like this quarantine options, micro-segmentations, integrity control, and so on. Another layer here is around the open architecture and the framework. Obviously, there are very flexible licensing and approaching options behind this, because some of the customers might decide to take this solution and using and adopting from the public cloud providers like Azure or AWS, using a formattation template for deployment. So in this case, what basically we can do we can use there a couple of the configuration management and orchestration tool like Chef and Puppet, and we can put there a formatation template which already has been designed, how we should deploy actually the different security solutions appear there, and then we can roll out using this configuration and orchestration tools. The last piece here actually is the fragmented policy management. I already talked about this fragmented landscape, fragmented and efficient management, which is very important. So on the last slide, what I want to show here is basically how EPO can own this. This is basically our single pane of glass, but this is an open framework and architecture. So what we have done here, that in our Security Innovation Alliances, we are working with more than 150 technology partners, relying and leveraging on the capabilities of this open architecture. So basically, there are some orchestration tools behind this that our open data exchange layer, message fabric, where basically many of those technologies, part of the Security Innovation Alliance program, able to basically subscribe security relevant information or threat feed, and with an orchestration tool called Threat Intelligence Exchange Server, we're able to basically distribute this information across different layers to different security devices. And think about here also third-party security devices. And this again strengthens up the visibility, which we don't really have even on our on-prem environment sometimes across the different layers. This kind of open architecture and framework will certainly help to work together to provide a very comprehensive threat intelligence arriving from different security solutions implemented and acting in different layers. And then we can combine this, and this kind of threat intelligence, that's something we can distribute and to make sure that our security devices, whether are they in the cloud or whether are they in on-prem, is aware of the latest findings, the latest threats to close the gap. And there are technology partners around this, as I said. So this open architecture is really for everyone. We have an SDK for this, so anyone who's able to provide relevant threat feed here is more than welcome, and we can work together. This is, again, a very flexible open architecture for that. So with that said, I just see the monitor. Actually, I saved nearly 3 minutes. I know you guys cannot wait for the charity auction and for the barbecue, so I didn't want to really that long and boring for you. I know it was a long 2 days, but I think one of the best conferences I ever been. I've been to here on the risk, as I said to Chris multiple times before, as a former responsible system engineer for the region. But I certainly want to express my gratitude to the organizers, because it's really the best conference, I think, so far. With that said, I hope I could a little bit shed up the light for you, how McAfee able to bring a complete visibility, control, and protection around the hybrid data center and hybrid cloud environments, regardless if it's coming from the infrastructure side of the house, the demands, or from the application and data part. These are the use cases I could show you. Obviously, if anyone interested into more details, want to see more from the product, I'm happy to go into the conversation even later today. We have partners here and Real Security who can also help. So with that said, I think that's all from my side. Thanks for having me here. I wish you a great remaining time, and let's see each other next year again. Thank you.